Good morning, Senator John McCain.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
We're doing that's Joe. I'm Chris. So
hi, Chris.
That's okay.
I'm sorry I can't differentiate the voices.
You know, after you do 27 interviews a day, you should know all this stuff. So
listen, guys. Here we're trying to do the Lord's work in the city of Satan, and it's worse than ever. So, let me just start out. If I could say, we're about to take up a what we call an emergency supplemental bill. The reason why they call it emergency is, but then you don't have to pay for it. In other words, it just adds to the already $13 trillion debt that we've run up.
Poof out of thin air.
So this is an emergency. Let me give you a couple examples of what's in this emergency. Okay, there's part of it is $1.5 billion disaster relief for agriculture. There's $21 million in it for a Hawaiian sugarcane cooperative. $21 million for a Hawaiian sugarcane cooperative.
And this is part of emergency stimulus?
Emergency, yes.
Okay.
And $75 million for America's hard-pressed chicken producers. I mean, it's here we are in the worst economic situation that we've had since the Great Recession. Families in the city of Tucson are having to tighten their belts and make tough decisions. So we come up with a $300 billion, quote, emergency supplemental bill. Oh, by the way, there's $23 billion in it. I'm not making this up, okay, to avoid layoffs of public school teachers. Now, that's an emergency. I mean, so it's business as usual here in Washington. Meanwhile, outside of the Beltway, people are still hurting very badly, and we're mortgaging our children's futures in the most obscene fashion.
Well, Senator, you have fought your entire career against earmarks, and it seems like these are the way the bills and appropriations make it down to states and sacred cows around the country. Have you seen any reform? I know President Obama has talked about we're going to do it differently. The Democrats have control everything now. Are they changing their role of earmarks?
He made a proposal that would give him an opportunity to, it's a little complicated, but actually to get rid of some of this pork barrel spending. It is the same proposal, almost word for word, that he voted against in 2007 when he was a member of the United States Senate, and we tried to get it through this thing called enhanced rescission. In other words, so you could eliminate some of this pork and unnecessary spending. I'm glad he's just proven again that old adage, it's not where you stand, it's where you sit on an issue, you know.
Well, the words are pretty, but the actions are ugly. And the only savior of this is what we call that crazy election day coming up in November.
Well, that's exactly right. And there's going to be a huge change. And I guess the reason why I bring this up to you, do you think that they're hearing the American people when they spend $21 million for a Hawaiian sugarcane cooperative?
Well,
by the way, the reason why that is, the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, the Money Committee, guess what, is Senator Inouye of Hawaii.
Yeah.
Well,
that's why it's happened.
Right.
Well, it hits me that they don't feel too comfortable in this guy's re-election chances coming up in 12, okay? And to me, they hit me as kind of like they're almost like a one-way suicide bomber on that run. They're going to get as much crud done that they can in these 4 years, and and you guys can figure out how to fix it on the back end.
And they may even have a little more urgency because in November, I think we all know there's going to be gains. The question is how large those gains are.
Yeah, do you think there's enough to take both houses or one house? What do you think?
Yeah, but I gotta give you some straight talk. Republicans have not figured it out that we've got to get a more positive message out. We can't be just against Obamacare and what the administration is doing. We've got to have a positive agenda. We spent too much money and much to our shame, and we were punished for it in the Bush years. And so I'm arguing vociferously amongst people in Republican circles that the number one item should be a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution of the United States. So we would have to make the same tough decisions that that the city of Tucson and Pima County are having to make.
Right. Well, Joe and I have talked about, as we move through to November, the soul of the Republican Party, on which, where does the Republican Party, where does these candidates have to be? Because it seems like the more moderate you go through, rolling through, you lose. As Dennis Prager says, when a Democrat runs to the left, they lose, and when a Republican runs to the left, they lose.
Well, there's huge frustration and anger out there, and so the people are angry, and they don't trust the the word that people are going to be different, and there is a polarization.
Yeah.
But they also there's a little bit of contradiction there because they also want to get something done.
Right.
You see what I mean? But the disconnect is what I think they're most angry about. How can we possibly, when nearly half the homes in Arizona are worth less than their mortgages, how can you possibly give $75 million to the chicken producers? How many homes would that? How many people would that help stay in their homes? Mm. And so I think that's the part. I have never seen in the years that I have had the honor of serving a more angry and frustrated electorate, and that, as you mentioned, that's on both sides of the political spectrum.
Joe and I have talked about recently also about the Pima County, State of Arizona Republican Party, and the National Republican Party. And this back to your positive agenda, the comment from before, getting in front on a PR basis, getting directly that communication to the folks out there that, with 1070 going on and the crud going on with the border and all these different things. When is that going to happen? Because we don't see it.
Well, then one of the aspects of this bill coming up on the floor, there is amendments, and we are trying to get this elements of John Kyle's and my 10-point border security plan enacted, like getting troops to the border, like increasing the funding to complete the fence, like increased funding for UAVs so that they're 24 hours a day. In other words, we're trying to get these elements into this package, as well as the defense bill, which we are in the process of working up, which probably will be after the recess. We'll take that up. So we are trying to get some provisions to secure the border, because I think we are in agreement. You've got to secure the border first and then move on.
Is there any dialogue?
Comprehensive reform.
Yeah, is there any conversation around comprehensive reform now that what Arizona did? Is it moving up the dialogue? Are they going to wait till after 2010? What do you think?
I think the key is to make sure that the border is secured first. I'd hate to revisit history with you guys, but in the 80s, under Ronald Reagan, they gave amnesty to 3 million illegal immigrants and said, we'll secure the borders. Well, obviously, if you have 1.3 million pounds of marijuana intercepted just in the Tucson sector last year, we don't have a secure border. And if you have 22,000 Mexican citizens killed in the last few years in this drug cartel struggle, then you better secure the border.
Right.
And so, no, I don't see it until we get the border secured. But you can secure the border, and you can do it fairly quickly.
Senator, we have folks call in, listen to us online.
Sure.
A gentleman from Rhode Island. And I don't think they understand what it's like to be on the border that we see, the role of drugs and crime and things, narco trafficking. I mean, it's a whole different view from where we're sitting.
Well, I think that's really so important. What I try to impress on my colleagues, our citizens in southern Arizona, where, by the way, apparently, if you apprehended 241,000 illegal immigrants in the Tucson sector last year, you do the math. That's about 1 million people who have crossed the border, right? Mm-hmm. That when people aren't safe in their homes, when they can't take their kids and leave them at the bus stop, when you have our wildlife refuges being just trashed and destroyed, they don't get it. They don't get that every American citizen has the right, has the obligation of government is to give them an environment that they can live and work and raise their families in a secure environment. I guarantee you, most of the limousine liberals that are opposing what we've done in Arizona have building security. They have, many of them go around with security of their own. They have a different lifestyle than our ranchers in the southern part of
Well, that's why I wanted. We had the Phoenix Suns coming out against 1070. I'm like, I know Steve Nash, I love you to death. You're one of my favorite basketball players, but you live in a gated community in Paradise Valley. You're not feeling the pain down there.
There is that disconnect, and I'm a bit disappointed in them. Because I happen to see and I admire Amari Stoudemire. I hope he stays. I really asked him at a Suns game. He had a security guard with him, or a person, obviously, who was there for his security. I don't blame him.
Yep.
But average citizens obviously haven't got that the wherewithal to afford that.
Hey, Senator, you talked about 20 years ago, Ronald Reagan, amnesty for illegals. We've been dealing just over the last 20 years. We've had mostly a Democrat Congress. We've had a couple of years in the Bush, that first couple of years of the second Bush term, where the Republicans had a little majority in both houses. So we've had all these combinations, but nothing's really ever gotten done on this border. What is the problem?
The last couple of years of the Bush administration, there was some improvements, belated improvements, and there has been some improvement. I mean, I can't argue that, but the president's budget for next year has an actual reduction in Border Patrol. We need the Guard on the border, and I'm told, and I know this for a fact from my visits to Mexico and my background in this, the presence of uniformed soldiers, guardsmen on the border, has an effect on the drug cartels, because in Mexico, the only institution that they fear is the Army. Mm-hmm. So just the fact that they would be there would have a good effect. And by the way, we learned a lot in Iraq about surveillance. The UAVs are very effective surveillance-wise, okay? Mm-hmm. And if you get them up 24 hours a day, that would have a very beneficial influence. It's got to be a combination of offensive surveillance and personnel, and it can be done. Anybody who says you can't secure your own borders, then you can't fulfill the obligation of government.
President Bush was a border governor, so we understood the role of that in his state. Napolitano was a border governor here in Arizona. It seems like she got to D.C. and forgot.
I think she's been everything with amnesia.
Yeah, what goes on?
That big smooch she gave to Calderon was just beautiful.
What goes
last
on
week.
up there?
And the statements that she's making now, in contrast to the statements she made as governor, are starkly contradictory. What it is she's being told by people at a higher pay grade than her to not do these things. Kyle and I, for over a year, have been asking for the Guard on the border. We wrote her again in April. Again, we haven't even gotten an answer.
Hey, John, we had City Councilman Shirley Scott on the air a couple of Fridays ago, and they, of course, are suing the state of Arizona about 1070. And we said to her, and it just hit me, and it started this whole conversation about, has the city of Tucson ever officially passed a resolution? Because everyone says it's a federal problem. It's a federal problem. We had Antonori and Steve Farley at our debate a couple of weeks ago, and they both agreed federal problem. Okay.
Or California mayors, or any of them. I mean, many of them said, look, we don't like what you're doing in Arizona, but we want...
So the thing is, I said, has the city of Tucson ever passed a resolution demanding from their federal officials, John McCain, John Kyle, Gabby Giffords, to fix it? And none of them ever have. You know what I mean? And it just blows my mind.
The other question I think you should ask is, what part of that law do you think is unconstitutional or illegal? And have you looked at the Mexican law about immigration?
We played that soundbite from Calderon on Wolf Blitzer.
Yeah.
Where he just basically said, after he bagged on 1070, he said, "Oh no, you cannot just come into our country.
It's worse down there."
You know,
the penalties are severe.
2 years.
The process is expeditious. And again, what we're hearing now is really kind of an admission that the law is constitutional, because if you heard in the last few days, the guy in charge of ICE says they may not take the people. Well, that means that they've been working night and day trying to find ways that to challenge this legislation. It's not as strict as the federal law, but the other point is, what we have to keep impressing on your friend from Rhode Island and these other people. Mm-hmm. Arizona acted out of frustration because the federal government did not fulfill its responsibilities. Mm-hmm. That's why the state of Arizona felt that they had to act. And
it's back to the PR battle, Senator. Yeah. It really is. And one question I do have for you before we go to break is, you are very popular in other states, okay? And you're just as popular in some other states as you are in Arizona. What is in relation to using that in relation to this boycott that our good friend Raul called for? What can you do with that popularity in other states to help kind of mitigate the Raul damage?
I've tried to do everything I can, and in fact, talk shows in other cities and around the country to say, look, please read our bill. Please understand, just as you and I were discussing earlier, the plight of the people in my state. No citizen should be subjected to conditions where they and their families are not safe. Yeah. And the drugs aren't stopping in Arizona. They're going all over the country. and the drug cartels are now using the quote Central Corridor as the main way of moving drugs and into the United States of America. Mm-hmm. So I try to explain it to them, and frankly, you guys are winning. We're winning. 60 to 70 to 80% of the American people, depending on how the question is asked, say they support the Arizona law, and many of them are saying they should have that law in their own states.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Senator, we need to go pay a couple of bills. Can you hold on for a couple of seconds?
Sure.
We're going to do a little rapid fire with some calls from some guests.
Sure.
All right, thank you for calling in. Hold on for just a couple minutes. We got Senator John McCain calling in from D.C. Joe and Alexander, let's get right back to our special guest, Senator John McCain. Good morning, Senator. Welcome back, sir.
I'm glad to be with you guys, and I just want to mention to you again that in this emergency spending, Build America bonds, $24 billion, health care for unemployed, $7.8 billion, payments to minority farmers, $4.6 billion, welfare payments, $2.8 billion, aid to localities, $2.8 billion, disaster relief for farmers, $1.5 billion, low-income housing, $1.1 billion, summer jobs, $1.0 billion, small business loans, $0.5. All of those labeled emergency.
The summer job, these kids, they got some stuff to do. They just can't run lemonade stands all summer, dude. Come on.
It's better than we're getting paid.
And then when you look into like this disaster relief for farmers, that's when you get the Hawaiian Sugarcane Cooperative, motorsports businesses, renewable energy firms, the steel lobby, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway.
One day it'll stop in the next 40 years. We'll see. So let's go to line 4. Dave, okay. Good morning. You're on with Senator John McCain. What's up, Dave?
Good morning, Senator. First of all, thank you for the service for our country. I appreciate that very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Question is what's taking so long to get this fence built down here in Arizona?
Money and
okay,
and will.
And they always say money. I mean, I understand it's not your fault, but they say money. But how can we have no trouble getting money for other projects like the bridge nowhere and stuff like that? What's a few $1 million down here? I don't understand that.
I've heard various theories. One of them is that there are some members of Congress who don't want the border secured, who want
I'm heading for Douglas right now, and what you say to me?
Oh, we lost Dave.
We lost you.
Hey, I'm sorry.
So there's folks that don't want to fund the fence?
There are some that do not want the border secure. That they want.
The majority.
Hey, Dave, we're losing you. Let's go to our next call. Let's go to. Thanks for calling, Dave. We'll try again. Bobby, you're on the line with Senator John McCain. What's up?
Good morning, Senator McCain. I had a question on the immigration, and I just find it I find it appalling that states are calling for a boycott of Arizona, particularly California, when they have their own. They have their own immigration bill already.
Yep.
834B.
Yep.
And it's identical to Arizona's.
It's to me, my friend, it's a height of hypocrisy, and it's galling, and it's really a situation where I think that in some ways it is trying to galvanize a political base for upcoming elections.
Okay, that's the story.
Yeah.
It's just hypocrisy is the absolute word for it.
If you're in the Democratic Party, there's not too much to hold on to in this last few months. So you're looking at anything you can out there.
So I'm curious why the mainstream media hasn't really picked up on that or politicized.
The mainstream.
Have you seen the mainstream media?
The mainstream media has mischaracterized this bill in the most obscene fashion that I have. Yeah. I can rarely recall a time where any issue has been as falsely described as this one is by the mainstream media.
Hey, Bobby, we got to get one more call in before the top of the hour. So, Senator, I'm going to give you a pre-thank you for coming on before this one call because Green Party Dave can talk for like 9 years. So we're going to end strong with Green Party Dave, and if we got to hang up on you at the top of the hour, God bless you. Keep doing your stuff.
Come on, Dave.
All right, Green Party Dave, what's up, buddy?
Well, good evening, or good morning. I'm excited to talk to you, Senator, and it's an honor to speak to you. But I do have an emergency you haven't mentioned. And with coming up on Memorial Day soon, we know that suicides have reached epidemic proportion. in our populace. We know that suicides now have surpassed violent deaths in America, as reported in the Washington Post. But amongst veterans, it's become very severe, Senator. You know that 119,000 men who served in Vietnam have now committed suicide. And we have not
So, Dave, I get maybe the question could be around the VA system and the
60 seconds.
No,
Yeah,
the current.
Go ahead,
Dave.
No,
David, I got 40 seconds for the senator to answer you. Help you a little bit.
Just very quickly, it is a big problem, and part of it also has to do with the reception that a small part of it, but how the reception our Vietnam veterans got when they came home. There are now active programs, thanks to Secretary Gates and the Pentagon, that is concentrating on this issue. This is very tough wars in Iraq and Afghanistan they're in. There are extensive debriefs. We are trying to work on this problem of PTSD as well as traumatic brain injury, and it is a challenge, and one that we have to stay on top of and devote every effort to.
Tucson's very own VA hospital is big on post-traumatic stress.
Yeah,
and
it's a very good hospital in Tucson. They're doing a great job.
All right, Senator, we've got to let you go. We got 5 seconds, so
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
have fun with the crazy people.
Remember, it's always darkest before it's totally black.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Chris and Joe, wake up, Tucson.